And that means that when I write about the early period, which I seem to be writing about incessantly, when I write about the early period of American history and English history as well, I'm always have the stories told by other historians in my head. This is a peculiarity of being a professional historian, is that while you're attending to what we call the sources, you're immersed in the documents of the period, whatever they may be, nonetheless you're also obliged and really inescapably aware of what other people have done before you or around you, so that this is of no interest to lay historians on the whole, who don't have to read these obscure articles and dreary monographs that I'm forced to be reading constantly. But it is very important to me, and so it inflects in a not always visible way. Actually, one of my goals is not to make that so visible, because that's not what would interest the general reader. Nonetheless, I just want to say it frankly at the very beginning that what I say here is inflected by, in this chapter, on the Cambridge Church and throughout the book. And some of that is actually, if you do turn to the endnotes, you'll find some reflections there on the whole. There's a choice one makes as a professional writer to indicate all the people you disagree with, or not. And this is both a professional issue and an ethical issue, because it's young people. You don't want to, if you're a political person, you don't want to put people down too much. You've already done that, maybe by a book review. So there's a lot of space for how much you say or don't say it. So I do actually indicate in the end of this book, more than in most of the previous work, some of the choices I've made. And it might be interesting to you to follow up, just to get a sense here and there of some of the disagreements that exist. In any case, so here my starting point in terms of what was in my head, echoing in my head from the books, since the 1970s, there've been maybe 8 or 9 town studies, we would call them, as a movement of town studies in the 17th century. And then in the 19th century, there were, of course, scores and scores of these, and I totally depend on those for much of the book. So, let's see, there's a chair over here.
And there's also a chair on the other side.
Yeah, so we're going to say okay. So I'm scared. But what I was most aware of as I look back on the modern town history dating from the 60s and the 70s, and it kind of died as a genre, unfortunately, is that none of these books paid any attention to religion, or none of them paid attention as a kind of lived, ongoing thing, and in none of them does a minister figure with any prominence at all. Partly this is a matter of records, of course. You can only say what is available to you from the past. So religion was kind of missing from these histories, which were primarily social histories, focused on things like demography or land distribution or who voted or questions that I do take up. And so my first goal when I started this chapter, this essay, which I actually started well before I knew that this book was going to exist, was to bring the church into the story. And then you had this singular possibility through Thomas Shepard, who, about whom we know a good deal because of the sermons of his that survive, the biography survives, his journal survives, various letters of his survive, and so forth and so on. But I wanted to bring the church into the story, but not the church. Am I speaking too fast too? If I am, just wait over hand. But not the church as a kind of static, set-apart thing. Rather, the challenge was to overcome what we might call the implicit secularism of a lot of town history written by social historians, and to make the church part of the social life of the community. Not apart from, but part of the social life of the community. And then, because I've never written town history, although I've read, actually, every single town history I've ever written about during the 17th century, all the colonies, including ancestors of mine wrote town histories, I wanted to have a double essay that dealt with town. And this meant that right from the very beginning of my project, this chapter, there were tensions.